All right, let's talk about the House of X, because you and I were just talking about this, and Jerry raves about Jonathan Hickman like 24/7. So I was in a Reddit chat talking to people, and then I ended up reading the first 6 issues. So could you see House of X being a part of like the way that the X-Men come into the MCU? Because I mean, we know that Kevin Feige, or
So
hold on, let me rephrase that, okay? Because even if you don't think so, like, do you think that if they adapted that story and went right into the MCU that way, like how do you think they would do that on the live action screen?
the bigger piece of the Hickman X-Men saga, I think they should take some from House of X, Powers of X, which is the formation of Krakoa. So Krakoa is the nation state of the mutants. It's an island. It's a living island, and the mutants form it, and they basically create these like medicines that make you immortal. They fix cancer. They're like the craziest medicines, and they use those medicines to keep healthy relationships with the foreign economies of the world and foreign countries. But there's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of philosophical questions from Nightcrawler on like what their laws should be, and it's really interesting. And I think it would be a really different take on the mutants. And I think the one thing that's also really cool about it is that Charles and Eric, Professor X and Magneto, are on the same page, which is very rare. So I think it would be different. I think it would be cool. I don't think anyone creates stories the way Hickman does. And I think that, it could also kind of explain, like you could kind of say they were hiding out on Krakoa and it existed. And, that's why the mutants really weren't around. You could kind of do that. But the other thing that's interesting from House of X, Powers of X, which I think they should take and make it the ending of the mutant saga, is so Orchis is like this crazy organization. And so one of the other things that's crazy in this Hickman saga is that Professor X keeps a database of all of the mutants' minds, and he uploads them, like, I forget exactly how frequently, but if you think about your smartphone, and like if you were to open up your smartphone right now and you were to check on your last upload to the cloud of your phone, it might say 2 or 3 days ago. Think about it like that. And basically, so if Cyclops or a mutant dies, they have the ability to birth a clone of Cyclops and just take whatever the most recent upload is of his brain and download that into the clone. But at the same time, and this happened in the beginning of the Hickman saga, they go to this like Sentinel satellite in the sky that Orchis is using to build the most advanced Sentinels on the planet, and they kind of go to the end of the future in this beginning part of the saga to destroy this satellite so they can't build these super advanced Sentinels that are going to wipe out the mutant race. And a lot of the biggest characters in X-Men die. They die. And I think that would be like, I think that should be the Mutant Avengers, like the Mutant Saga's version of Infinity War Endgame. And I do think they should kill off some major characters. Specifically, one of them, spoiler alert, if you're going to read the saga, which you should, it's incredible. And if you're into comics or you want to get into comics, Jonathan Hickman saga is like an absolute must.
So I do think the Krakoa thing will probably be more of a practical add-on to the MCU because you could literally use Brave New World to be the perfect link for that, you know? Because like you could set up to where Thunderbolt Ross has these files, and what if like Sam Wilson finds out about the whole thing, you know, and he's like, who are these people, you know? And that could be an easy way for them to bring it in. Not to mention, we already saw something similar to that in Captain America Civil War when when they went to that base and they saw all of those people that were injected with the super soldier serum, right? That were like Bucky Barnes. So I do think that from a practical standpoint, that will line up with what our MCU timeline is. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, with that being said, I do see them going a different route because I feel like I can see something where they might want to break free from that, and that's where I think House of X could could have possibly be the start. But now, but when I hear you break down that, we might get a mix of both, man. Like I don't know. Like I think that Krakoa is going to play a really big thing in Marvel because that's going to be the perfect response to mutants. You know, like this island. So, or continent or whatever it is. So yeah, bro. I think that
So
I think that's a very I think it's very possible that we could see that happening in the MCU.
so the
It just lines up perfectly.
and they could do that. They don't necessarily have to adapt the full Hickman story to use Krakoa. But the other thing it's vital to understand about Krakoa, the mutants formed Krakoa because they have been persecuted their entire existence, and people have been trying to wipe them off the face of the planet. So the mutants are like, we need Krakoa to protect us. It's kind of like Krakoa is a solution to their eternal problem.
Would
You
it
know,
if I
and
sorry, go ahead.
they could use the idea and the concept of Krakoa and that Orchis storyline from House of X, Powers of X, but still adapt, some of the classic X-Men storylines and kind of reconfigure it to include Krakoa and Orchis and the Sentinels. And, for anyone who's wondering, like, oh, well, then it's not really an adaptation. First, if you do read comics and you haven't noticed that almost all of the MCU has been loose adaptations. They take creative liberties, and I think for one, listen, they have built the most successful and expansive franchise, based on like comic books in the history of the game. Everyone's trying to replicate what they're doing. So who are we to tell them that they're wrong for taking these creative liberties?
Yeah, exactly. And like the same way with Infinity Saga, they took certain things from certain comic books and stuff. I think they should do the same with
Yeah.
this, man.
And if Infinity wasn't a loose adaptation, it would have had Adam Warlock defeating Thanos. And obviously we didn't even see Adam Warlock until Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So,
and
your
no one
favorite
cared.
movies,
And nobody cared about Adam
and
Warlock.
I did. I like Adam Warlock, but it was an afterthought. And, yeah, that's just the way the MCU has been, and it's always been that way.
Yeah, I would have loved to now that you say that, like I would have loved something to where like after like would have been dope instead of Wanda vanishing or dying or I don't think she's dead, but and instead of Wanda going into that sleep, wouldn't it have been dope if like the Professor X from the MCU called out to her and say, "Hey, I have a place for you to where you can go and heal." And it's freaking Krakoa, and then and then her mind just go, and she just leaves and goes to Krakoa.
Yeah.
Like there's like there's a lot of
Maybe that
subtle ways
happens.
that they get.
Like
Maybe
there's
she's there.
the other cool thing about this Krakoa concept is if they've been hiding out on Krakoa this whole time, like there could be a lot of backstory and things that they could use to fill in gaps based on what happened. And maybe you could say Wanda has actually been hibernating out on Krakoa, for the past 5 or 6 years.
What if, and like, I mean, bro, what if like Stark knew about this the whole time? I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could go there. I wouldn't be against that, but here's what I think. I think Reed is going to be that guy. I think Reed's going to be that guy. That's going to be talking.
And they need to. Reed should be that guy.
I think Pedro should be in everything, but that's just my opinion. Like, if this is your Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards needs to be the glue between the X-Men and our Avengers team and all that stuff.
And they need to form the Illuminati. That has to happen. And Reed and Professor X should, and the more
Benedict
Doctor
Cumberbatch.
Strange.
I mean, you have the perfect actors right now. Imagine Benedict Cumberbatch and Pedro Pascal and all these guys in one room talking to a new T'Challa. I mean, dude, come on.